I guess the live stream's up and running. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see if I got a notification. I might have to do something. Yes. Okay. Thank you for being here. Let's have a word of prayer. We'll begin our Bible class this morning. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful that we have this opportunity to study from your word. Bless us. Give us a good understanding and an open heart. In Christ's name, amen. So we're studying 1 Peter. We're in chapter 3. I want to finish up this one section here and move on a little bit this morning, but if we can. And we're in this section here on submission, three sections of the book: salvation, submission, and suffering. We've explained the connection between these three. That Christ, to offer us salvation, had to submit to the will of God, and that involved suffering. And similarly, if we want to be saved, we must submit to God's will and each other, and we must be willing to endure suffering. That's kind of the gist of what I would say it means. And this is all grace. He says this is the grace of God, the true grace of God, that you do this. This is God's mercy to you. So anyway, the section we're on now, we talked about wives being in submission to their husbands. This section is on husbands giving honor to the wife. And so here's the verse that we've been considering. I want to try to finish this up today. Husbands, in verse 7 of chapter 3, likewise dwell with them, your wives, with understanding, giving honor to the wife as under the weaker vessel, as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. So we broke it down in a chart this way, that husbands are to dwell with them. Dwell means to live with and to mix it up together with, as it were. Two things. To dwell with understanding. Women are not inscrutable mysteries, no matter what they say. They're not inscrutable mysteries that cannot be understood. This verse says you have to do that. And husbands have to make an effort to understand, but wives can't pretend that they can't be understood. Even if what you understand is my wife is very inconsistent and so forth. I mean, you can understand that. Maybe that's what you understand. Or erratic. Maybe that's what. Maybe your wife is erratic. Maybe she's not. I don't know. But you are required as a husband to understand your wife. And then you are to give her honor as your wife. And in two ways. You understand her as a woman, not as another man. You can't treat your wife like another man. She's not a man. She's a woman. You have to treat her like a woman and understand her like a woman, and you have to give her honor because she's a woman. You can't hold it against her. We'll see in another verse, because she's a woman. And secondly, you have to give her understanding and honor as an individual, because your wife is different than other women and other people. You need to give her understanding as an individual. So those kind of things, and I thought of a couple examples of this and last week after the class, naturally, and now I can't think of them now exactly, but I'll give you one example. Which one of us, me and Judy, do you think is more likely to enjoy a romantic comedy? And which one's more likely to enjoy Mission Impossible as a movie? Well, you would think that it would be Judy on the romantic comedy and me on the Mission Impossible, but you'd be wrong. Exactly opposite. I didn't realize this for years. I'd find these movies to watch, and they'd be, Sleepless in Seattle or something. And she's okay with that. No. She'd much rather see The Matrix or Mission Impossible or the Jason Bourne movies than she would those romantic comedies. Okay, that's Judy. Well, I understand that now. So that's how I understand that's the kind of show she likes. And so if we're going to watch something, maybe we'll find something, if you can find one of those that's clean enough to watch. Of course, I make that point. Well, you just like all the violence and sex, so that's why you like those. So I tease her about it. But the point being that you can't assume that because she's a woman and you have this idea of what women like, you might be wrong about your wife or taste or her preferences, you know, and so forth. She doesn't care about going shopping all the time just to walk around and look at stuff and you don't have to have the latest clothes. Does she like new clothes? Sure. But she doesn't care about that style. If I could have another wife that cared about that, well, I'm not going to because I wouldn't pick them. But you could theoretically, if you could have a wife that doesn't care about that, well, you'd have to respond to that. So you have to give honor to her and live with understanding with your wife, and you have to understand she's not a man and not a child. She's a woman, and you have to listen to that. So, but the honor to her, I don't know whether the word honor, I think the word honor there, I don't know whether it should be connected to as the weaker vessel. I don't know if it should be connected to wife or honor, but you see it's coming, this whole phrase. Now, there's two things he says about giving honor to her. Again, two things. Number one, you give honor to her as unto the weaker vessel, as to the weaker vessel. It doesn't say as a weaker vessel. That's not what it says. It says as to the weaker vessel, so it's something that's done. And secondly, you do it as being a joint heir of the grace of life. And those two things are not incompatible at all. What does it mean, as to the weaker vessel? Well, oftentimes I've seen this presented as, well, women are not as strong as men physically. They're generally shorter. They generally have less strength, and they're weaker. Or they're emotionally weaker, or whatever. You can come up with this idea. And the word does mean weak or sickly. It's used to mean sickly in the Bible, or it's not strong. But that's a general term. It could be applied to anything. It could be applied to a speech. God could give a weak speech, you know. It doesn't have to apply to physical strength or sickness. But it's just like in English, the word weak can mean a lot of things. I have weak tea. I like a weak tea, or I like a weak coffee. You know, a person could like that. It just is a relative term. Well, I think it probably does have something to do with that. Strength that most men are physically capable of hurting their wife, far more so than she is them. Now, I think it should be illegal for a woman to touch her husband if it's illegal for a man to touch a woman. This is a double standard in our society. Women want equality. If you want to push for equality, then every time you lay your hand on your husband, you should be held legally accountable, just like he would be if he laid his hands on you. Is that what happens in our society? Not at all. Women can hit their husbands, shove them, do all kind of stuff, and nothing happens to them. I thought we wanted equality. Well, we don't. We want equality if it benefits, one or the other. But the point being, neither one of you should be laying hands on each other except in joking. And then as a husband, you need to be careful. Look, Susan probably already does have to warn Andrew, don't do that to your sister. Now, she's 2 or 3 years older than him and bigger than him, but he's twice as strong as she is at his age. Why is that? Because he's a boy, and that's only going to get way worse. Once testosterone starts kicking in, that problem's going to get way worse. So boys are always taught, see us, we're always taught, be nice to the girls, don't hurt the girls. Boys grow up with this. Women are not to be hurt, they're to be given special treatment. And it blows up in men's faces all the time. Well, should they? Well, yes. Of course, some men are stronger than other men too, but we don't get told, be nice to the weak guys, be nice to the nerds. Guys never get told, be nice to the nerds, but at least they didn't when I was a kid because they weren't nice to me. But the point being, it has something to do with that. Yes, men, you can hurt your wife physically, but why would you? She's your companion. She's you. If you understand what it says, and we're going to come to this, about she's part of you, who you are, then why would you do that? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but love is not one of them. But I think it means something different than that. Primarily something different than that. I'll start back here. When I first was preaching, when I was 22 years old, started preaching, 20, 21, 22 years old. But I was about 22 when I said this in a sermon. That men basically you need to make your wife be in subjection to you. You need to make your wife be in subjection to you. And someone said to me, that's not correct. That's wrong. Well, I thought they were objecting to the subjection part. But what they were objecting to is the fact that it's my job to make her be in subjection to me. And I think that they're correct. So I correct my statement there. It is not my job to make my wife be in subjection to me. It is her job to be in subjection to me. That's what the Bible says. Wives, be in subjection. She doesn't have any. I've heard preachers say women have a natural inclination to be in subjection. What women have you met? Where are these women that you met? I don't know any of these women. I've never known these women. Did Eve want to be in subjection to Adam? Let's just go back to the beginning. Did she want to be in subjection to Adam? No, she did not. And she wasn't. And that's why God reinforced after the fall, he's your head. You got to submit to him. Because she doesn't naturally want to do that. She has to do it, though. And nothing I can do really. We've talked about this already. Can I make somebody do anything? I can't make anybody ever do anything. I can never do that. I can't make anybody do anything. You know the old story, I've told you 100 times. Little boy's misbehaving. Mom says, go over there and sit in the corner. She looks over, he's standing beside the chair in the corner. She goes, I said sit down. I don't want to. I'm not going to. So she takes him by the shoulders and she shoves him down into the chair. I said sit down. He says to her, well, I may be sitting down on the outside, but on the inside, I'm standing up. Okay? Now, how human is that? That's the essence of being a human being. You can't make anybody do anything. So, women, you must be in subjection voluntarily. My wife is voluntarily in submission to me. I don't make her do it. She's voluntarily, has been for 50-some years now. I had one guy, I probably told about him before, at one church, and found out he was hitting his wife. So I went over, she had a little thing, he's a big, strong man. I went over to his house, sat down there. I said, you know, David, heard that you're putting your hands on Lynette. This is not going to fly in this church. Not as long as I'm the preacher here. It's not going to work. Not going to happen. Or if it is, you're not going to be part of this church. He gets up out of the chair to come after me. I said, well, that'd be good. Go ahead and beat me up. I don't care. How's that going to work? Come on, think, man. You're smarter than this. Think. How's it going to work when you beat the preacher up? Is that going to go well for you? Because he was a religious person. He wanted to do right. He's a good. Well, how do you make Judy stay with you? How do you make her stay with you? I said, that's the whole point. I don't make her stay with me. I treat her so she wants to stay with me. He looked at me like I was from Mars. Never occurred to him that that's why a woman stays with you, because she wants to. Okay. And I said, and you can do that. Well, they didn't. They ended up divorcing. But he couldn't comprehend that he didn't have to make her do anything. Now, she had to want to do it, and she didn't want to either. It was a big mess. Of course, I found out later his whole problem. See, these kind of guys, you can get so mad at them. You can want to throw them in prison the rest of their life. You want to pull their toenails out with pliers. We're so mad at these kind of guys. So here's the story behind it all when it all comes out to me in private conversations. This young man's mother had been sleeping with him since he was 10 years old after her husband died. Until he was in his late teens, she'd been having sex with him constantly, sleeping in the same bed with him. He comes home from school one day in high school and finds her dead in the bed, and she left a note to him for him to find. What do you think his attitude toward women was? What do you think he thought? And he has his emotions, his understanding of women in relationships was completely fouled up from word one from the time he was a young boy. Completely perverted and twisted. He was doing good to be not a serial killer. Okay? He was doing pretty good. And he's not a bad guy. But nobody ever wanted to find out the actual story. They just wanted to be mad at David. There's more too. Most of these guys that are molesting children, just 80% of them or more have been molested themselves. Do we care about that? We don't care about that. They're men. So you don't care about it because they're men. Throw them in jail. Woman gets molested. Oh my goodness. What's the difference? That's all. I'm not saying one's good and one's bad. I'm saying, what's the difference? They're both people. They've both been sinned against. And males react one way to being sinned against, and women react another way to being, because they're different. They're all the same. They're not the same. They react differently to the same sin. Males and females do. Men tend to react outwardly to being sinned against and being mistreated. Women react inwardly. They take everything inside, and men take everything outside. Well, that makes sense, because guess what? Guess how men and women are anatomically. Anatomically, men are on the outside, women are on the inside. It's the way God made the whole world, made male and female. All goes back to the same things. Does that make any sense? It makes sense to me. So anyway, and I'm not even going to get into how you fixed all that, but the point is, you can't make your wife, that's her job. What you can be as a man is you can be the head, you can be the leader, you can assert masculine leadership in the right way, which the Bible defines what that is. And part of that is treating her as weaker. What does it mean here? Well, it means this. God made you the head, and she voluntarily submits to you. When she voluntarily submits to you, she puts herself in a weaker position. The one who is submitting is, by the natural order of things, in a weaker position. They don't have as much control because they're submitting. And when they do that, since my wife voluntarily submits to me, and I don't have to make her do it, and therefore things don't always go her way, and she's done this for me, I need to respect that and treat her with gentleness and kindness and respect because she's done that. I can't take advantage of her weakness in that. She's in a weaker position. I can't take advantage of her weakness. I must honor it, give honor to it. So I should honor my wife for being in subjection to me, not by just giving her whatever she wants, but by respecting the fact that she did this voluntarily. She didn't have to. She's equal to me. She's a human being like I am. But she's done this so we can have a family, we can have a good marriage, we can have a life. And does my wife get anything out of being in submission to me? Yes, she does. She gets to be treated like a woman. And I get something out of it. I get what men need, which is respect. So there's a positive side to all this too, which we haven't got into. So this is what it means. Men, you are not permitted by God to treat your wife with disrespect or ignore her needs because she submits to you. You're to give her honor for that position. Respect it. And do not denigrate it. Don't take advantage of it. Don't try to insult her or make her feel bad for it. You don't have to remind her. I don't know. I don't think I've ever had to remind my wife to be in subjection to me. I have an unusual wife. I will admit that. And that's because I'm pretty smart and I did the right thing. You can give Judy, but who picked this woman? She was only 17. I picked her right out of the crowd. I said, that one. So who gets the credit for that? I mean, it's obvious. Anyway, I'm teasing. Yes, ma'am.
Could you add into that, as to the weaker vessel, also meaning protection for your wife?
Well, yeah, that's right. Protection. That's the positive aspect of this. Protection. Protection physically, and protection emotionally and financially and every other way. That is your job as a husband. She's put herself in a weaker position. My wife has never earned basically $1 in the 50-some years we've been married. She's never earned her own dollar. Huh? She never. She had a job when she was about 16 for a few months at an airport. If you've seen this, oh, it's a hilarious thing. It's an airport with one landing strip in Alabama, a trailer, a landing strip, and a windsock. So planes would radio in, which way is the windsock pointing? And she was 17, she'd tell him which way. 16, she'd tell him which way. That was her job. Anyway, so she's highly qualified to run everything she runs. She runs everything. She ran a whole concession thing for this big club show we had up in North Florida the other day. She ran the whole thing front to back, all the accounting. Before it was even done, she already had all the accounting done. She runs everything. Well, the point being that she has never earned $1. Whose job is that? Well, that's my job. And she provides what I need to make a living. And she would be happy if it's a lot or a little, because she's in subjection to me. That's part of what being a man is. You shouldn't be getting married to a woman expecting to find a woman with a good job so she can take care of you. What kind of man are you that you want a woman to take care of you? You're laughing at me. Well, what kind of man are you? You're not much of a man, are you, really? You're a boy. If boys don't mind women or other men taking care of them, but men don't want that. They shouldn't want that. Somebody should have raised them better than that, and that's a lot of people. You should want to take care of yourself and somebody else as much as you can. Now, you got to find a woman who's willing to leave her daddy and all the money her daddy makes and go with you when you're making less money and may not ever make as much money as her daddy. You got to find a woman who wants to do that with you. And I'm thankful because she never wanted more than I could give her. Doesn't push me all the time for that. She's happy with it. So I take whatever money I get, I bring it home, hand it to her, and that's it. She takes care of it. Most of it. We talk about what to do with it. We pay the bills. But whatever I have is not mine. It's hers too. It's just as much mine as we don't have separate bank accounts. It's all together. It's all one pot. If she goes out and spends a bunch of money irresponsibly, guess who suffers? I suffer and she suffers because it's all together. If I go spend a bunch of money on junk I want and buy a new boat, new fishing rods or something without talking to her about it, figuring it all out, guess who suffers? She suffers and I suffer because we're together. But that's my job to figure that out. Now, when we don't have enough money, it's my job, and I've done this before, go out and get a second job and make more money. The husband should be getting the second job or the third job, not the wife. Now, this is old-fashioned. It doesn't fit, blah, blah, blah. Give me 10 exceptions. I understand that. But you'll be a better man if you will take responsibility to take care of your wife and children and do the best you can with that. And you work the extra time out. Now, what happens today is a man needs to take care. She wants a man to take, and women want this. Women want a man to take care of them. When women are dating, they do all the service, everything. Women care about how much money their prospective boyfriend has. They care about how much money you make. And they have all these specifics. They want the sixes. He has to be 6 foot tall, which is protection. Okay. He has to have six-pack abs, which is the physical part of marriage and strength. And he has to have a 6-figure income, the 3 sixes. There's another one, but I won't mention it, but the sixes, because women like that stuff, see. And they care about how much money. Of course, when they show these young women, they want, well, I want a guy that makes $1 million a year. So they show this woman who's average looking that only 1/10 of 1%, and he's got to be black or he's got to be white, and he's got to be unmarried. So now that brings in about 0.1% of men make $1 million a year that are unmarried. Because guess what happens when a man makes $1 million a year? You think he's got any trouble finding women? No, they're falling all over him. So these women are looking for these men to make $1 million a year, and there's a percentage of 1/10 of 1% of men meet that qualification and are 6 foot tall. What percentage of men are 6 foot tall? Oh, but 25%. But women think all men need to be at least 6. They'll say at least 6 foot tall. Well, you've already limited your pool real small. So I see one guy on the street. He asked these young ladies, how tall is your boyfriend got to be? Oh, at least 6 foot tall. Okay. So out of his coat, he picks up a scale, puts the scale on the ground and says, stand on the scale for me. Well, what kind of man are you? It don't matter what a woman weighs. Well, he'll say, but you can change your weight. I can't change my. And he'll say, you're short. You're only 5'9", 5'10". You can change your weight. I can't change my height. Once again, a double standard. Why is it okay for a woman to say you've got to be 6 foot tall, but a man can't say you got to weigh so much before I'll marry you? Now you can say, well, both of those are shallow, and I agree. They might both be shallow, but don't say one is okay and one's not okay. This is where we are today. So many unmarried people, that's where we are because of this foolishness. So men have unrealistic standards, so do women. But my point being, it's my job to take care of my family. So we need more money. I need to go out and get that second job, and I've done that. Not as much as I should have made, and it's her job then to take what we make, and we'll do the best with it together. But she manages a lot of that. There's another verb in the Bible that we can talk about what the roles are here. But so that's the weaker vessel. She's submitting to you. You need to respect and honor that, and not hold it against her, not insult her, not make fun of her about that in front of other people, not take advantage of it. Snap your fingers.
Like, I think throughout time, the older men have stopped teaching the younger men. The older women have stopped teaching the younger women in that sense of being submissive and or the guys being the provider.
Well, here's the... Yes, you're correct, Tremaine. So what I'm going to say now is not contradicting what you're saying. I agree with you. Men are not teaching other men to do this. But here's the problem. I had a conversation with a young lady in a store I was in the other day, and a clerk there, and we got to talking about different things. And in fact, a couple of them. Almost all young men today, who are they raised by? Who raises most young men today? A single mother. Where's their father? Nowhere to be found. Well, that's because men are terrible. No. That's because the women don't want them around, because they have to then respond to him being a man. Sometimes it's that way. Sometimes. Why are the deadbeat dads deadbeat? He's not around. Why is he a deadbeat dad? Because his father wasn't around, because the mother was raising him. All I'm saying is, boys and young girls are not meant to be raised by single mothers. Single mothers are not bad, they're doing what they can do. I'm not saying that. But God never intended for a woman by herself to raise a son or raise a daughter. You need both of them. But people, for very frivolous reasons, give up that too. I just read a story on the radio. Came off a Huff Post. Yes, sir. All right. Remind me of my story, Gary, and then we got to move on here. Yes.
Going back to the normal household, the mother and the father raising the children, and going back to your example of the gentleman before, there are two women in a man's life that he loves. Who are they?
Yeah, his wife and his mother.
His wife
Right.
and his mother. But I guarantee
And if they both think that they should support the family by working, that young man said, well, that's going to be great. I want me a wife to take care of me.
yeah, but I guarantee you the love for the mother is a lot different than the love for the wife.
Sure it is. I had to tell my mother one day, Mother, I can love you and Judy. I can love both of you. And I do. But if you make me choose, I choose Judy. How many sons have said that to their mother? I said that to my mother.
That's something that mothers often do not learn.
But see, yes, I said it, I told my mother, and you're the one that taught me that.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, you're correct. Okay, that's the kind of mother I had. But I said, don't force me, because I said, I'm going to choose my wife, because you told me I should choose my wife, but I don't want to choose. I can love both of you. But behind that all was my dad, who was the foundation and never wavering on anything. As a man. And whatever we had, he took care of that. My mother depended on him to take care of his responsibility, and he did. Because my mother submitted to him, even though she was much more outgoing, much more forceful. My dad was very quiet and reserved, but she obeyed him and pointed me to him for stuff. But see, when you grow up in that environment, you don't even think about these things. When you don't grow up in this environment, all you have are single mothers taking care of you. And I can tell you from watching different videos, the young women and young men coming out of the poorer part of our society, they're just taught, their lives are run by women. I can tell you something, real men do not like being told what to do by women. They do not like it. They do not respect it. Say what you want about it, they don't. That's why we have trouble in the workplace. Certain professions, the men just leave. The men just leave certain professions because they're being dominated by women. They just go away because it's not natural for them to be told what to do by women. Well, part of that is, like Tremaine's saying, men need to step up. I don't care whether your father was there or not. My father's father, now he had his grandfather. He stepped up and became a man, took care of his family. You can do that too. If you come from a single mother household, my advice to you as a young woman is don't repeat that pattern in your life. And if you're a young man in that situation, don't repeat that pattern in your life. That could stop with you and stay together. The story I was going to tell you. HuffPost. She's 39 years old. The article starts out that she's been single now for 7 years. They got a child, had a child, baby child, and she decided that she wasn't happy, that she wasn't fulfilled, and so she left her husband and children, worked out a mutual arrangement with the kids, went on, and now she's complaining because of how life is on the dating apps. And she sleeps around, does that. She can't find love. I'm like, yeah, could have told you that before you ever started the process.
Part two of that is I was reading a report the other day that was,
Speak real loud, Gary.
I was reading a report the other day, it's part two of this, that single fathers, children raised by single fathers often turn out better than children raised.
It is even often. It's far greater that children raised with a single father turn out to be much better off in all metrics than children raised by single mothers. Why would that be? Well, it's because of the difference in men. Men were meant to raise. What does he say? Fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. Fathers, do not. God directs this whole thing of children to the fathers, not to mothers. We got it all backwards in our society.
But where does the law allow the children to
Well,
go when there's a divorce?
the law is, our laws are wrong. You're right. But the point is not that women are bad. God meant for people to do it together and in this arrangement. Now then, he says that you give them honor as being heirs together of the grace of life. This means, among many other things, joint heirs. Joint heirs here, heirs together. I think somebody say joint heirs. It's a word that's used several times in the New Testament about us being joint heirs with Christ and so forth. This means that women are in no way spiritually inferior to men. As far as the church, as far as the kingdom, as far as the home, they are not inferior. They're different. But they are joint heirs together. My wife's spiritual welfare matters as much as mine does in life. So I need to make sure as a husband that she's getting spiritual nourishment, that she's encouraged, that she's finding whatever she needs to grow as a person and feel cherished and loved. That's part of my responsibility as a husband. And the idea that since I'm the head, she's just my servant, since she's in subjection to me, she's just my house servant. Now, people say that's what the Bible teaches. Does that sound like what this says? The Bible does not say what feminism says that it says about marriage. The Bible says something different than the picture painted by modern feminists about marriage and about women. It doesn't say that. It says they're equal here. And the husband has to make sure that she gets treated equally and is thought of equally in this regard. Now, the practical matter, there's a lot of practical things about this. It doesn't mean that women get to be preachers in the church and public teachers, but it certainly doesn't mean that they're second-class. And I've seen churches where the women aren't even allowed to have a ladies' class because they might get together and say something no man approves of. Well, that's not a joint heir. Or husbands think it doesn't matter. The women that I've known in my lifetime that influenced me, they were to a large degree the spiritual leaders of their family, the spiritual source. They were the source of the spiritual life in the family. Were they the head of the family? No, they weren't. But they were the source of so much of what spirituality was. The women were. And their husbands encouraged that. That's the way it is in my family. So, this is a different picture. But this is a responsibility. Husband, you want to be the head? Now, we even get to these other verses. Sorry. You have to take responsibility for this. Why? So that your prayers will not be hindered. Wow. There's like almost no other verses in the Bible that say something like that. That if a husband doesn't do these things, God won't hear his prayers. Or his prayers won't work. They will not function. They won't work. So you're praying for the welfare of your family and your children, but you're treating your wife like a menial servant, and you don't even care about what she thinks or feels. It's not going to work. Will not work. You'll have a woman on HuffPost writing articles about her new dating experience. Okay? You won't have a wife anymore if you do that. Anyway. Was that the second bell, Joel? Yeah. All right. Well, I know when Joel opens the doors, I'm supposed to shut up. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I get upset about these things because there's so much damage being done to people for generations over this. And until we get a handle on what it is, we can make corrections. The world won't ever make a correction. And if the world makes a correction to these things, it'll be too much, an overcorrection that will be bad for men and women if the world makes the correction. Yep.
I'm gonna get Sharon to take me home. I'm gonna get off this knee. I'm not gonna be able to go.
Okay.